Hi, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm looking at the latest release of the Bristol Beaufort in 1/72 scale from Airfix. If you enjoy the video, you can support the channel for free by subscribing. Make sure to hit the bell to get notified of all my new content, and anything you like on the channel, please give it the imperial thumbs up on the like button below. Now, this is the second release of the Beaufort from Airfix. The first was the new tooling in 2020 on which this kit is based. Let's see what it's like. And so here's the box itself of the current release, 2024 release. Adam Tooby's box art showing the Torpedo Training Unit aircraft, Coastal Command colours. I love Coastal Command colours. Always have, always will. 1/72 scale, as you can see here, Beaufort Mark 1A. And in the bottom corner here, you might just be able to make out a 04021A. That's the product code for this kit. The 04 at the beginning means this is a Series 4 kit, so if you're collecting flying hours tokens in order to buy one, then you need to make sure you've got enough for a Series 4 kit. And the A at the very end says this is essentially a second release of the original kit, which indeed it is. On this long end, usual warnings pointed here is the Cartograph company logo, of course the Decals Cartograph, and recycling marks and so on. On the other long side are the two schemes of the aircraft here, one for 217 Squadron Royal Air Force in Southeast Asia Command colours, and here the one I'll be doing, which is the number 2 Torpedo Training Unit up at Castle Kennedy in Scotland. There is a brief history of the Beaufort here, and underneath that there's the thing that says when the kit's complete it will be 186mm long, 244mm wide, and there are 159 pieces included. Down at this end is the colour callouts using Humbrol numbers, the common ones, and then individual ones for the aircraft schemes here. Here it says this is a skill level 2 kit, so it's not like a starter set. You probably would help if you've done a little bit of model making in the past. If you even just made one model that you're happy with, because there's more parts and there's a little bit more involved. But you know what? Most people could probably do this anyway. A reminder of the facts of the Airfix Club here, and a token for 2 flying hours. Now, as I mentioned before, you can collect these together and get a free kit such as this in the future, or if you don't want to do that, you have to be a member of the club to be able to collect these flying hours for extra kits. So if you're not a member of the club, or you are but you don't want to collect these flying hours tokens, do please consider giving them to Models for Heroes, a link to this very excellent charity that helps current and former members of the armed forces and the Blue Light Emergency Services. The details for that are in the information box below. Okay, let's have a look and see what we get inside this really lovely box for our money. The lid lifts upwards, it's a top box, absolutely fantastic. Inside, as usual, big plastic bag full of frames of plastic. There's a separate bag inside this for the clear parts, of course. Inside there is also the instruction leaflet, and tucked away inside the instruction leaflet is the decal sheet. We'll have a look at all these bits in a bit more detail. Right, we'll start off with frame A. This obviously has the 2 fuselage halves, the tailplanes, rudder, the main gear and some wheels. These are 2 different options for the rear turret. The Mark 1 and the Mark 1A had different turrets, so these are the 2 different bits that fit in here. Frame B, obviously the wing halves, and here are the different flaps. Some aircraft had this later sort of slight bulge extension at the back edge of the trailing edge of the flap, so you got both as an option. Frame C, engine parts, the main spar here, interior parts as well, propellers. This is the bomb bay or torpedo bay, the main door, whether it's open or closed. If it's closed, it looks like that. The bomb doors and torpedo doors, and then some of the interior of the cockpit as well. Frame D has main gear parts here, support for the turrets, some of the interior parts of the front ends, the doors to the bomb torpedo parts, base and more parts of the undercarriage here. Cruise seating, a couple of extra doors here and there, bits and that. Oh, tail wheel as well, bits and pieces like that. And then finally for the dark plastic, we have frame E, contains the solitary crew figure, the torpedo, aerial torpedo with this big fin arrangement at the back, and some other bits and pieces around the interior of the bomb bay, interior of the cabin. These are parts for the undercarriage bays, and so on. There's also here frame F, and this is the transparent frame. So you've got the top of the cockpit area, the nose, two different types of gun turret, varying the very front of the chin here of the aircraft as well. There's a bulge here. This thing is like a rear-facing gun turret that fits underneath the chin, which is quite weird. Got the light covers here. This is a direction finding aerial cover here. Now originally I was going to praise Airfix for having put in these big fins of plastic here on the frames, and that's to protect the wing roots that are on the other side because they do stick out. However, as you can see, this wing root's been bent, this wing root's been bent downwards, and they're not mold errors because they're white, they've been bent in the packaging. So yes, it's all very clever doing that, but unless they're that way up in the box, when you put other stuff on top, they're going to get bent, and I think that's what's happened. I'll probably be able to sort these out, but if I were a regular customer and I wasn't in a hurry, that would be going straight in the bin, and a rather unfortunate email to Airfix, I suspect, because that's really rubbish. Also, you can see here, probably here, you can see this white at the junction here. That shows that this has been pressed downwards again by other things being put on top. I suspect it's supposed to go in the bag the other way up, as either the top or bottom part, and then other parts stack up, as I say, on here. You can see, in fact, here you can see either side here. This whitening is where the plastic's been put under stress by bending. So that's pretty disappointing, I have to say. It was a great idea, but if the people packaging these don't know what they're doing and don't put them in the right order, this is what happens. As for the rest of the plastic, it's the modern sort of very, very slightly brownish dark grey plastic that molds okay. You know, the detail's all right. I wouldn't say it's brilliant. It's okay. It's better than they used to do. Not as good as perhaps they would do now. But it's only 2020. It's not like that older kit to be looking at these thinking, nah, they're okay. There is plenty of aftermarket, of course, available, but that's not the point. They do put detail in wherever you're likely to be able to see in, which is cool. But other than that, yeah, it's okay. I wouldn't go further than that. They've got these ejector pin marks here and here. I don't know whether they're going to be involved in the build anywhere. I have to get rid of those. I don't know yet until we make the things. Otherwise, no, they're okay. The panel lines are recessed and they're reasonably prominent. The shading on the moulding over the ribs here on the elevators is quite nicely done. That would be fabric, whereas the rest of the tailplane would be metal, obviously. Yeah, they're okay. They're okay. But I'm really disappointed by the bending there. Undercarriage parts here, yep, they look fine. You know, again, they're not mind-blowing, but they're not terrible. The instrument panel is okay. We can dry brush that relatively easily. That's reasonably good, actually. That should be easy to dry brush. The undercarriage parts are okay. They're just things in the film just feel just a little bit chunky. If I'm honest, they feel a little bit not as refined as they could be. The figure is all right. again, not as good as they've made before. I mean, the 1/72 P40 mould, the pilot figure on that was lovely. So I don't know why. Yeah, there's probably what should be essentially the same figure, I would imagine, would be so different. Oh no, the one on the P40 is probably an American. This is a British pilot. But, yeah, it's okay. But only one figure. The pilot, no other figures for the aircraft. Torpedoes here, obviously. The torpedo cradle here. And some of the interior pieces. Again, they're okay. They're not mind-blowingly good. Again, the wings, they look okay. Actually, the wings look all right. There's no riveting to be seen, but then I don't know whether there was any riveting that you could make out on the actual Beaufort, or whether they had sort of flush riveted panels. I don't recall off the top of my head. Someone will tell me. The flows are okay. There are not too many flow line issues here. There's a thing here that I'm suspecting, yeah, is to do with ejector pin point there. So I don't know whether that's going to, I can't feel it, so I don't know if it will actually make any difference on the actual kit, but we will see. Yeah, it's all right. Wheel well, it's okay. These bits are all right. Okay, if we look at some of the more delicate pieces of the undercarriage, yeah, yes, we don't want the undercarriage too delicate. The Beaufort undercarriage was a bit of a cat's cradle of stuff. This is the support for the mid-upper turret guns here. But you can see all the parts are a little chunky, which at this scale I guess they may have to be. But they're all right. To be structural at this scale, then you need to sort of slightly overdo them, I guess. Tail wheel looks all right. These different bits and pieces look okay, but not much more than that. No, it's a very different perspective. I'm sure when I first saw this, I thought, wow, this is really nice engineering. This is really nice. Bit of work here from Airfix, thinking about older Airfix kits in particular. But now looking at other manufacturers' work at the same scale, you do feel this is slightly soft, slightly rounded, not quite as crisp as maybe it could be. But good enough. And I think that's the point. It's good enough. This radio operator station is fine. And you can brush paint that. You can probably pull out a few instruments. There's probably a decal for it. But then you're probably not going to see much of that when it's actually built. There's a decal sheet as well. Obviously, the part up here are the decals that are common. So both schemes are available. So mainly trestle markings, radio markings, and literally 2 or 3 other little things. And of course, the instruments for the flight deck. Then you have the specific markings for the 2 schemes. First is the aircraft of 217 Squadron in the Far East or Southeast Asia Command colours, no reds whatsoever in roundels. And lastly, the second scheme, number 2 Torpedo Training Unit with the regular Northern Temperate decals, roundels and markings. And this, I guess, is the location of the life raft if they have to ditch. There's a panel that a life raft is contained in. So looking at the detail, cartograph decals, as usual, very, very cleanly printed. You can see here, 0.5mm pencil lead, so some of this trestle here is like 0.4 of a mil, maybe. Lift here marks, things like that. The instrument panel is alright, that's a single decal to go over the instrument panel. I'm really not a fan of decals and instrument panels if the instrument panels have relief on them, because sometimes getting them to sit properly, even with decal solutions and stuff, is very tricky. So I'm not the biggest fan. If I'm going to be able to see it, I would tend to go for aftermarket or paint it by hand. The colours are grand. I like the interior pale blue, almost an azure blue, on the inside of these roundels, the SEAC roundels, and of course the Northern Temperate markings, very lovely yellow, lovely rich yellow on these roundels, which I do like. And then the instruction booklet. as usual, the fairly simple, regular Airfix instructions, history of the aircraft, some specifications in English, French, German, Spanish, and Swedish. Again, product code A04021A, and the sizes span of 244mm, fuselage length 186mm, and there are 2 decal schemes included. On the inside, more general assembly instructions in many languages and translation of all the icons here. So, and then the construction starts, and unusually it doesn't actually start with the cockpit, which is quite cool. So if you're using the torpedo on here, which you probably will be, then drill out those holes and then start the construction around the spars primarily, which is fantastic. And eventually then you start adding the cockpit details in and seats and stuff like that. It's fairly conventional otherwise. The whole sub-assembly with the spars slots out through the side of the fuselage, and that's good because that's going to give a nice support for the wings when they come in. Yeah, everything's pretty cool there. Obviously, instructions for painting the pilot as well, if you want to use the pilot. There's that piece, as I say, that whether it's a 1 or a 1A determines which of these parts is used, because they're different, because the turrets are slightly different on the 2 aircraft. Other than that, everything else is pretty much straightforward. The 1A had these extended flaps all the time anyway, so that's cool. That's the option. You don't really get an option. That is what you use. The start of the quite complicated undercarriage as well. Engine parts, very straightforward. Yeah, fitting the engine. The thing that's probably most people find a bit of trouble with are fitting the transparent parts, because there's a lot of them. They all sort of like interlock like a jigsaw in a way. So you really just need to make sure that the fuselage assembly is absolutely spot on, and use a clear PVA type glue on these, because then any gaps will probably get filled up. There's a tiny little hair of gap there, it will get filled up, whereas like a quick drying cement or a super glue just won't do that. And of course it won't have any fumes to cloud the transparency either. If you're doing there's options about having the bomb bays open and closed and things like. With the torpedo, the ends of the bays fold inwards, and then you just use the outside part of the closed bay to sort of sit either side. Then the torpedo can sit along the interior of it, which you're probably going to do because there isn't a bomber version of this in this release. The undercarriage, again, you can see it's all quite spiky and quite a lot of bits and pieces. It looks complex, but it does actually go together relatively straightforwardly, which is nice. The gear doors slot down and then they sort of click into place, which is a nice touch. You've got a very definite permanent connection. The main wheels are weighted, but there's no keys here on the side. The connections are just round connectors, so probably you want to make sure that these are all set really well. The tail wheel is set really well. Then once that's done, then put the main wheels on, sit it on a flat surface so the flat spots are in the right place, and then just touch in with some glue to set the position of the wheels. I'm guessing that would be the best way of doing it. That's the way I'll be doing it on my one anyway. I remember having some problems fitting that on the last one, but I think I know what I did wrong. There we go. These things are all very good. Torpedo, of course, we're going to have a torpedo because mine's a torpedo training aircraft. All the bits and pieces, and it's then onto the schemes. So this is the first one, 217 Squadron, Royal Air Force, Southeast Asia Command, Vavuniya in Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, of course, April 1944, with the relatively few decals that have to go on, all over dark green at the top, matte light grey underside. It's roughly, to be accurate, it's sky grey. rather than matte light grey. It is technically sky grey that goes underneath there. But yeah, it's a quite lovely looking paint. Oddly, you can see here the colour on these roundels here are spread out a bit. So those are the colours they should be. For some reason, the greens spread out into those in the printing, which is a bit strange, I have to say. But there we go. Wouldn't be Airfix if there wasn't something strange on the colour schemes. And then this is one I'll be doing, number 2 Torpedo Training Unit, RAF Castle Kennedy in 1943. So it will have the torpedo and it will have the extra dark sea grey top, predominantly white. I'll do some weathering on it as well because it would have had a hard life flying off in the stormy conditions up in the north. But I just think it looks beautiful. White with this EDSJ on top. It's fantastic. And that is the instruction sheet. There it is. I'm disappointed with the damage to the wing fillets, especially as Airfix had taken the trouble to build in protecting fins into the frame. It's bad packing and that's what you get. But overall, the kit looks like it would build up okay, and I love the Coastal Command colours. If you found this video useful, then why not subscribe to the channel? It's free, and if you hit the bell, you'll be notified of all my future content. And please remember, anything you like, give it the Imperial thumbs up on the like button below because every like counts. Thank you so very much for watching, and goodbye.